Again, welcome. Ms. Jones, if you could call the roll for the meeting officially, please.
Certainly. Councilmember Bell?
Here.
Councilmember Cousins?
Here.
Councilmember Fisher?
Yes.
Councilmember Knight?
Here.
Councilmember Michelle?
Present.
Councilmember Smith?
Here.
Student Rep Alex Gilbert?
Here.
Student Rep Isabella Malik?
She's still
She's muted, so but I do see her. Mayor Keough?
Here. Thank you. Okay, so we have a full board and everybody's here. Item C on the agenda this evening is approval of the meeting minutes from our regular city council meeting from June 22nd. Jim Smith, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, I'd like to move the minutes of the June 22nd, 2020 regular council meeting. And I have one correction.
Okay, motion by Smith.
Second by Knight.
Second by Knight. Thank you, Julie.
You're welcome.
Jim, I'll back to you for the correction or the proposed correction.
On page 4, under L1, new business, the motion there, support should be Fisher, because I can't make and support a motion.
We tried, but correct. We'll correct.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else, Jim?
No.
Okay, Ms. Knight, any comments to make?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, other council members, did you see anything in the minutes that you'd like to bring up?
No.
Seeing none, Ms. Jones, well, I guess all those in favor of approving the meeting minutes, signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, thank you. Oh, I lost the agenda here. Hold on a second. There we go.
Prearranged.
Nope, it flashed on me. We have no prearranged participation this evening, so we're down to approval of the agenda. Jim, I see you have your hand up again.
Yes. I'd like to approve the agenda with the removal of L4 because it's redundant to the city charter. And I'd like to make items L5, 6, and 10, change those to discussion items.
We also need to add the item about the paper of record selection.
Okay. Please add that too, please.
So that the paper selection would become L14 then, right?
Yeah, whatever, yeah, the last one is there.
Yeah, okay, so you said 4.
4, remove.
Eliminate 4, change 5, 6, and 10 to discussion. Is that what I got?
Yes.
All right, sorry, just making notes on mine so I know where we're at. Thank you. Okay, is there support for that motion? Donna Fisher has her hand up.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion?
Yeah, point of clarification. Does this mean that we will not be seeing any employment or similar actions for those employees that are subordinate to the city manager before us?
Yes.
Good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Other questions or discussion? Okay, Ms. Jones, if you would call the vote to accept the agenda, please.
Okay. Michelle?
Yes.
Knight?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Bell?
Yes.
Fisher?
Yes.
Cousins?
Yes.
Keough?
Yes. Thank you. Okay, we have an agenda. There are no public hearings this evening, so we're down to our first opportunity for non-arranged participation. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak under non-arranged? For those of you that are on the Zoom meeting that may be listening in public, there is a raise hand option under the participants window at the bottom. If you can find the participants window at the bottom of your screen, click on it, and then the raise hand is in the lower right corner. Justin, I'm not seeing any hands up. Do you see any?
I'm not seeing any. Those who are calling in can hit *9, I believe. Would you like me to unmute all?
No, I think we're okay. I mean, there's been a lot of Zoom practice over the last several weeks, months. I'm thinking people are getting pretty good at this, so
Okay.
I'm okay with what you're saying. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing some going up and down the side here. Thank you. Okay, communications. There were 2 in the packet, the upcoming meeting list and the thank you letter from the road commission. Any comments on the communications or questions?
The road commission does have that virtual public meeting tomorrow, which is in my report too, but this is a reminder for the millage.
Thanks, Courtney. I'll move right into our first report, I-1, our Public Services Superintendent. Welcome, Dan. How are you?
Good. Good evening, Council. I provided you with a three-week report. I also have updates on the Hudson Grand Project and Forest. And then I also have, I'll start with the last one. We started last week doing our sewer manhole inspections around the city. I was notified 9:30 this morning, the sewer manhole that's out by Cribley well drilling. It's 22 feet deep. We have water infiltration, a considerable amount. And then also, we noticed that the integrity of the concrete of the manhole is deteriorating. It's falling apart. So today, with the help of OHM, I was able to contact 3 contractors to possibly, or to give us a bid on that work. One was DVM Utilities Incorporated. The other one was Advanced Underground. And we have IPR that's out on West Chair River Drive. The water infiltration we have is coming in right above the outlet of the sewer that heads down Dexter Chelsea Road towards A&W. And then on the back side of that, we've got the concrete is crumbling. These 3 companies specialize in stopping infiltration, like what we have in that manhole, and also they can go in, sandblast where the concrete's falling apart on the inside of the manhole, and they cover that with a mortar first after they clean it up, and then they use an epoxy that they go over that. So I'm hoping tomorrow or the next day we can get some quotes back on that. With that infiltration, I'm a little worried that if it breaks loose even more, that sewer goes to Westridge Lift Station. We don't have any water main up there. I'm not really sure where the water's coming from, other than maybe a well or an artesian well. So I'm going to be looking into that the next couple days and trying to put something together so we can get that fixed. Is there any questions on that?
So Dan, is that like the second manhole upstream from Dexter Chelsea Road, or the 3rd manhole, something like that?
It is the first manhole that the Dexter High School ties into with their force main.
Okay.
So if you go just to the end of the property of Cribley well drilling, that's the first manhole that they tie into with that force main.
Gotcha. Okay.
And
Thank you.
actually that's the side that we're seeing the deterioration of the concrete. And I'm not sure if it's just faulty material or if it's got something to do with the amount of time and the gases that are in there from their lift station that's pumped down to that manhole. But I think I've got 3 really good companies. I've gotten good references on them. So I'm hoping that we can get something put together on that and we can get that taken care of. The biggest problem is that water infiltration. I'm going to guess it's 5 to 10 gallons a minute. So if you figure that out, it's anywhere from 10 to 20,000 gallons a week that we're pumping down the wastewater treatment plant. And it's also putting obviously more water into that Westridge lift station. So I think it's an emergency situation. I'll be talking to Courtney as we start getting all the details. I do know that Advanced, Underground, and DVM are going to send confined specialists out tomorrow to enter it. Somewhere between 10 and noon, they're going to call us when they get there so they can do a better inspection so they can give us an accurate quote on what it's going to cost to do the repairs on that. And if there's no other questions, I'll go on to the updates on Hudson and Grand.
Okay.
Hudson Street, they started pouring curb on Friday. Obviously, with the rain, that slowed them down a little bit. They wanted to get a little bit more done on Friday, but with the rain, they had to stop. So today, they had a crew up on Hudson trying to finish the curb, doing some sidewalks and also some driveways. I didn't get up there at the end of the day to look at how far they've gotten on that because I was dealing with actually the contractor showed up at the same time to do the assessment on the sewer manhole. They were also on Grand Street today doing curb. I'm hoping that they're going to get both sides of Grand done today. And tomorrow on Grand, they're scheduled to do sidewalks and driveways. The last update meeting we had, they're approximately 2.5 weeks out with possibly getting asphalt on Grand and Hudson. If everything keeps going the way it is, I think that might be possible. Forest Street, Mr. DeWolf will be either showing up Wednesday or Thursday. I kind of held him off the beginning of this week because of the concrete work and everybody happened not to be able to, weren't able to park on Grand or Hudson when we're doing this work. So they had to park elsewhere. So I'm hoping Wednesday or Thursday to have Steve here to work on Forest Street storm water for us. Any questions on either one of those?
So what's the planned completion date? Or remind me of the schedule again on those, Dan, just roughly?
August 1st, I think, for both layers of asphalt, and then restoration we're going to have to work on. I'm not thinking that we might want to put restoration off a week or 2 or 3 just so we can get into that prime, a little better wet weather than real hot weather.
Yeah,
but
fall.
Yeah, but they're on schedule. Everything's going pretty well up there right now, knock on wood.
That's great.
And I've also gotten a lot of compliments from a lot of the residents up there on the contractor and OHM, which is good feedback.
Dan, were you gonna tell them about your hydrant?
My hydrant.
That was a big deal.
What's
that
that?
hydrant on by Creekside.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot all about that.
That was exciting.
Hey, we had a hydrant that's been out for a while in front of Creekside. We hired a crew to come in and they replaced that hydrant last Wednesday, Thursday, somewhere in there.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a brand new hydrant in front of Creekside.
I
Thank
think
you.
that was the only one that was out of service, right?
Pardon me?
I think that's one of the only ones we had out of service.
Absolutely. Yes, it was. Yep. We were trying to get parts for a long time and we couldn't do that. So we decided just, we budgeted and put it in a week and a half ago. So thank you, Courtney.
And how are people doing with the odd even water? The water usage for the last 3 weeks looks, fairly consistent in the upper 600,000 gallons, 700,000 gallons a day. Are people generally following our odd even?
We've been out a few times to help remind, and then also we've gotten some emails from residents that's helped us out a little bit too. So we went around and hung the door hangers or just reminded everybody. We've had a couple days that we were a little over, 800, but it averages down after we go out. We go out usually in the mornings. I'll bring a couple guys in about 6 a.m. Usually I'm here pretty early, so I go out and try to see, if we do have anybody or a lot of people. So actually everybody's been following it pretty good, but we've had to have a few days where we went out with reminders.
Okay. And the
So
number five seems to be recharging okay?
Yeah, it seems to be working real well. Yep.
Okay,
As
good.
long as we aren't up in the 1 million gallons, I think we have plenty of time for our first replenishment job. Does anybody have any questions on my 3-week written report?
I don't see any hands up. Okay, thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is our Community Development Manager. Michelle, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How is council this evening?
We're good.
Hello.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, before I go into updates, do you have any questions for me? Okay, I don't see any hands raised and I don't see anybody speaking, so I'll jump headlong. Planning Commission will consider a request for an amendment to an approved site plan for UIS. Instead of doing an expansion of their current building, they've reevaluated and decided a standalone building would be a more practical, cost-efficient, and effective option for them to pursue. So Planning Commission will consider that plan on August 3rd. We don't have a formal submittal from the ZAO group on a Metro Act permit. But they are still showing, they're still making inquiries about obtaining a Metro Act permit for the underground installation as well as some aerial installations. And you'll recall that council did deny their request before because their plans were not clear in that the places they were asking for work in our right-of-ways weren't actually our right-of-ways, and we weren't able to assess the impact on the wastewater treatment plant. Well, they've reached out to us, they've provided us with some physical copies that I was able to sit down with Dan and Eric and go over. And so we have a much clearer view or understanding of what they're asking for. And the other thing to recall is they were proposing this underground installation, which would have some impacts by our wastewater treatment plant because DTE had denied their request to do aerial installations. One of the things that I had proposed to them was that I could reach out to DTE and see if there wasn't some way to facilitate an aerial installation. And the feedback that I've gotten from DTE so far has been positive, and it's my understanding that the pole that was denied for use is actually one that DTE has planned for removal and replacement because it's an old pole, etc. And because of that, and because ZAO has this need, and because the need has conflicts with our right-of-way, DTE is looking at that pole to be replaced sooner rather than later, which could possibly allow the aerial installation, and that ultimately would eliminate all of the conflicts we are concerned about by the wastewater treatment plant. So stay tuned. I'm hopeful to hear something back from DTE shortly. Excuse me. Oh, I'm so sorry. Just to follow up on the Encore Theater update regarding their outdoor performance series, especially in light of some of the concerns that others have had about other concert series or uses of the park not being necessarily consistent with council's desire to protect health, safety, and welfare. The Encore Theater is doing their productions as part of their business, and because they can't do them inside, they're doing a smaller performance utilizing their own property. They would limit the number of audience participants by selling tickets. They're setting up their space so that the music that they would be ultimately, that you would hear in the performance projects toward Main Street, not toward the residential that is behind them. And they have a decibel limit at their property lines that we are currently working on. The permit that I issued said it had a maximum level of 60 decibels, and that was done so that we could look at, or we could take readings as they practice to see where we can moderate that level. It certainly doesn't need to be lower than that, but it may be okay to raise that decibel level without negatively impacting adjacent properties. So at this particular point, that's all of the updates I've got, and I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
Michelle, how many how many permits have we issued through our emergency ordinance for outdoor seating or use of outdoor public areas that you can think of? I don't, just kind of list them off as you go.
So we have had 3 applications for
Okay.
the emergency order. 2 have been issued permits. 1 is still working, excuse me, to finalize those, but we have allowed the seating to be placed, again, as a measure to help the businesses.
Okay.
There are 1, 2, 3. There are at least 3 businesses that have applied for the temporary use that on private property that I have administratively reviewed and approved. Excuse me. And they are, I'm sorry, there have been 3 applications. 2 of them I have approved. 1 just came in today, and it'll be issued tomorrow. So you've got 6 total applications, and 3 on Main Street. 2 of them have been approved, 1 still working on it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions for Michelle? Seeing none, Michelle, thanks. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Move down. We don't have any items under I3 or 4 highlighted, so I don't know that there's any updates necessarily. I'll skip down to Courtney, please, for the city manager update.
I just have a few things that are updates. We did get a tax tribunal from Dexter Shops, it was filed because the governor extended the filing deadline. That is the place next to Bush's that has the Anytime Fitness is going there, and Sushi Time is there now, that area. So this is not unusual. They filed this. We've probably done 2 of them at least since we became a city even. So we don't have the formal paperwork on that yet. We haven't been served with it, but that is out there. I believe that's our only one for this year.
Okay.
The paper of record thing we can cover under that item. We did receive 50 of these Dale Fisher books. That's a lot of them. So I don't know what council's intention was on what to do with them, but I don't want them to just sit here. So if council has thoughts about what we want to do with them, I don't have one here to hold up, but they look really nice. I think staff has looked at them, and Paul, they got delivered to Paul's house originally, so we brought them over here. But we have them, and I guess whatever feedback you guys have. We never really talked about the distribution, so I don't want to, do something that people don't want me to do with them. Pavement markings are ongoing. They got a little bit delayed because of the weather, but you can start seeing the white lines and those being improved. Had an increased number of comments about speed and people not stopping for stop signs. You know, more people are home and they're just watching out their windows. We just had another one through the website today, and so I mean, we've tried to move the speed display around more than we have in the past. So we have a few spaces where that's lined up to be, but I'm not really sure. You know, I put it in the email update as reminders. You know, people keep asking for speed bumps, which, you know, clearly we're not going to do on public streets. So I've explained the difference between private roads and public roads and snow plowing and etc. So yeah, I'm really kind of at a loss at this point as to what to even continue to say. I mean, unless we pay for a whole deputy to just sit out here doing that, they can't always be here. They take care of 3 communities. It's a very large area, and when everyone wants them to be there, which is rush hour, is when they're busiest doing, you know, in the community. So sometimes they'll go out there and sit in a certain place, but it's like at 11 a.m. and nobody's driving through that space at 11 a.m. So anyway, just something to think about. We did get our MERS actuarial, so our percentage went down slightly, but nothing to be concerned about. Our required payment will go up quite a bit next year, so we'll just have to keep that in mind during the budget, but there's nothing bad. I mean, we're keeping a good percentage. Let's see. Still working on the in-person meeting space. I think we should be fine through the end of July because I do not see the state of emergency being lifted before the end of July. So that should carry us through at least one more meeting. I'm hoping that we can come to some sort of an agreement with the senior center to continue to use that space, even if we have to kind of bring in the cleaning company and we only use it for council and planning, something like that. Really just the places where we have public hearings, it would be nice to be in a consistent location.
Courtney, with the numbers kind of bouncing around and going up and down a little bit, you know, of late over the last couple of weeks, have you heard anything about the governor extending the ability to use virtual?
No.
Any way you could send a note to MML or anything and see if anybody's thinking about it?
Yeah, I can. They tend to be just as surprised as anyone, but
Yeah, okay. Not trying to create work, just it's mid-July. It'd be nice to know if that's going to be extended.
right.
How does council feel if we get the option to go back to person and not able to use virtual? Do you want to use virtual anyway? I mean, in addition?
In addition, you mean we'd still meet, but people could,
Listen virtually or participate virtually, I should say.
Yeah. I don't even know if that's allowed or will be allowed. I'm just asking the question, I guess. Maybe I should wait and find out if it's allowed.
Yeah, I mean, we had talked about making sure we were prepared if that was the answer, that you still could have audience part. I don't see why you couldn't have audience participation. I don't know, like council participation could be virtual at that point unless that was an order, but I think you could probably always have audience participation be virtual. You know, we could be broadcasting it like on a cable station or on the internet now.
Yeah.
So what we talked about, because the council had already given us permission to buy like a camera and things like that. So, you know, we hadn't done it because everything became virtual, but now this might be something that we want to continue so that people can continue to participate even if they aren't comfortable coming in.
Right. Well, it was a mild shift. We said we were going to keep exploring it. And anyway, it seems like something to think about.
Tom, Courtney, your statement about don't we know if he could do it or not, is that relates to the legal portion of somebody, a council person off-site,
Yeah, so the
not
open,
being able to
right,
participate?
the Open Meetings Act, she kind of waived or whatever to allow that, you know, these to be held online. Because normally, you know, council has to be present all in the same place. So I would think once the order was lifted, council would have to be in the same place. But I don't know that there would be any rules that we couldn't have engaged public from outside.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it's something to just ask about anyway.
Well, it would be nice to have the option because, I mean, you might have council members that aren't, aren't necessarily comfortable in person,
Correct.
you know.
That's my point.
Right. So she may, I mean, the governor may end up, extending it, like you said. I mean, we're not into phase 5, so maybe she'll extend it at least until we get out of phase 4. I think for communities under a certain size, she should just leave it as an option. That would be even better, in my
Yep.
opinion.
I agree. That'd be best.
Let's see. Petitions for council are due by 4 p.m. on Tuesday, July 21st. Dan covered the projects. The election is funny. I mean, it's hours of work a day for Justin and I dealing with these absentee ballots. I think we broke 1,400 today. So it's interesting. And then Justin is going to talk about the charter amendment petition.
Yeah, so last week we received a letter from the Attorney General's office indicating that our submission to them was, they called it insufficient, but basically they disagreed with ours and Scott's interpretation of the law and how the ballot proposal language needed to be set up. And Scott and I have talked a few times, and it's not easy to parse through. There's when upon first reading, it sounds like there are conflicting statements in the law, but basically the Attorney General's reading of the language is that if the language is proposed through a citizen-initiated petition, and that petition language doesn't match the requirements of state law to be included on the ballot. So if what they're proposing isn't in the format necessary to be placed on the ballot, then City Council is required to pass a resolution, basically creating or adopting the ballot language. So Scott and I talked quite a bit on Friday and over the weekend to try and come up with language that could potentially meet what the AG's office is asking for. And we forwarded to the AG's office a couple of options over the weekend. And our thought is to come back to council for the next meeting with a draft resolution or a proposed resolution and some options on ballot language that the AG's office has already blessed. I don't know what council's feelings on that are, but that's the AG's reading of the languages that council has to pass the resolution adopting the ballot language.
And when do we have to do that by, Justin?
So that has to be completed before August 11th, but
Okay.
I think it would have to be on your July, I think it's the 27th. Yeah, the July 27th meeting, because the language then has to go back to the Attorney General's office for them to issue a final opinion before it gets put on the ballot.
And what if we don't pass language that meets their approval by the 11th?
So the case that the AG's office referenced, there was a case where this happened, and it was in Detroit. And basically, it went to the circuit court, and the circuit court enforced some language to be placed on the ballot.
Okay. I mean, I don't mean that I mean, if we just don't do it right now, I mean, we're obviously in a quandary now. I don't know what we're supposed to be passing, but I was just curious.
Right. Also, so the language supposedly reads that the ballot language in total can't be more than 100 words. And because the language would be adopted by council resolution, we wouldn't be eligible to put a quote unquote explanatory caption on there in addition to the 100 words. And then it has to end with a question mark. And then all of the statements or wording have to be true statements based on what was submitted in the original filing.
Okay. So will you be sharing the letter then that we got from the Attorney General and all the backup, whatever, in the next packet?
Yeah, so my thought was that I would send the letter out here in the next, probably tomorrow, just so everybody had a chance to see it. And then all of that plus the couple of options for the ballot language would go into the next packet.
Okay. Okay, thank you for the update on that.
You're welcome.
I don't see any hands. Are there anybody waving? Paul's not waving at me.
No.
Oh, Jim Smith has a hand up, I think. Jim?
Yeah, I was just wondering if Courtney had any updates about the Dropbox on the building.
The last we heard from PNC in Philadelphia was that they were approved, their legal department was approving the hold harmless letter we wrote them. So hopefully once that moves through their system, I mean, we have it, it's ready to go, all detailed up. So hopefully.
Is that the one just inside the door?
This would be outside the door, right under the sign.
I mean, the existing one.
No, it's in the DPW in storage. It's at the DPW. Right now, we're just using a ballot box
Okay.
inside the door for people that don't want to come up the stairs.
Yeah, I thought I saw something there, so.
Yeah, that was kind of our temporary fix when we originally were limiting the people. So we have a nice new one that's more like a real drop box that we
Right.
put out.
And people can still use the one over by the sheriff's office?
Yeah, that's still there. Yeah.
Okay.
It's just smaller than the new one, and since we'll be getting more ballots in them, it'd be nice to have something bigger.
Yep. Thank you.
Any other questions for Courtney or Justin? Okay, I'll move on to my report. I just wanted to say just one last thing on Courtney's, the MERS valuation. You know, that's really an important document for us with all the staff we have that are part of our defined benefit plan. And, you know, when I think back to 2008 and we were somewhere in the 59-60% funded range and the assets were quite low, for us to have built up the 3.9 million and be at an 86% funding, even with the slight drop and the change in actuarial assumptions that seem to happen more frequently now than they ever did. It's really something to be proud of, and this council has been committed to that, and the staff too, in making sure that we're doing that. That's quite a financial achievement, I think. So I hope we can keep going on that. On to my report. Oh, sorry, Paul.
Any way that we could, or maybe Courtney can answer the question, we could get a comparison of similar size units of government?
I know
And what
Celine's
their-
about
theirs
18%.
are?
Say that, Zach. Zach, go ahead, please.
Celine is about 18% funded.
In their pension or their retirement or healthcare?
The bigger one, I forget which one.
It might be their healthcare, but we're like 40% funded there too, so. Okay, I can ask that, Paul.
Yeah, if you would just kind of give
I
us
think they've put out stats like that in the past.
Well, and I think it's important to say, you know, when we took on that challenge in 2000, or recognized it, I guess, in 2008, and Marie started encouraging us to save on the OPEB side, but the defined benefit plan was where it was. you know, this was done with a commitment by staff, but it was also done by a commitment from our employees. You know, they relaxed their benefit to help us get back on track with this. You know, going from the, what was it, 2.25 to 2%, I think, or 2.5 to 2.25. I always forget which one it is, but they cooperated with us too. So it's been quite a success story. Anyway, I just, since it's in the packet and right in front of us, I just wanted to say that's something that I think we should all be proud of.
Agree with you.
So thank you to staff that were part of that too. On my report, I wanted to talk a little bit about a meeting I had with the homeowner on Central Street. I don't know if any of you had a chance to find out where 3319/3321 Central is, but it's just, I'm going to say north or northeast of 5th Street on the west side or northwest side. And it's a rental property that had a fire in May, and there were 3 apartments there. And due to the severity of the fire and the subsequent inspections that occurred after, that house has been condemned, so to speak. Nobody's in there. Nobody's occupying it right now. There are trees and leaves and branches up on the roof. There are little seedlings growing out of the gutters. There are gutters that don't go all the way to the ground. When I went back and looked at it at the request of a neighbor, there was garbage in the back. The lawn had not been mowed. If you want to call weeds and leaves lawn, the lawn had not been mowed. She had reported that there was a leak in their sewer lead in the backyard, which I think has been fixed. I meant to ask Dan if the sewer was even in the alley back there. I don't even know where the sewer is for that house, but the fence that's along the property line is being held up to trees with like bungee cords or straps. And I just wanted everybody to know that, you know, a couple of years ago, we went through a process to try and figure out how to get a home improved over there behind Grandview that ended up not getting improved and being taken down. And I'm not saying that this one is at that same level, because that one was certainly its own story. But I asked Michelle to, you know, really get a hold of this property owner and encourage him to take an active interest in this, because I know that I wouldn't want to live next door, I guess, based upon what I saw. And I don't know if it's sort of hidden the way the property kind of takes up the whole frontage. You don't see what's behind it. Anyway, I was quite eye-opening to me, and I just wanted to share that meeting that I had with that homeowner. So,
Can you tell us what the address of the site is there, Sean, please?
yeah, Paul, it's 3319 and also 3321 are the 2 addresses on the front. There's a rear yard access to the 3rd apartment, and I don't know that address, but if you, it's right next to a little blue house.
It's 3319 and 3321 Central Street?
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I wanted to touch on the power outage that we had on June 10th, which was kind of a weird outage because many of the lights in the downtown, including our street lights, but inside businesses, they flickered quite a bit during this outage. It wasn't like the power went off and stayed off. The reports, and Courtney helped me here. Donna, I'm sorry, I just noticed your hand. I'll come right back to you.
Oh, I did it by accident.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
We thought we should follow up with DTE and find out, you know, what they were doing to investigate it, what they understood happened, what they're doing as a follow-up. And the bottom line is apparently there's a switch, okay, and I may not be using the proper technical term, but a switch at the Diamond circuit, which is connected to the Diamond substation, that had failed. And they identified that it needed to be replaced. I don't believe, as a result of that, they're going to do what did they call it, Courtney? Sort of an additional investigation of the entire circuit along the line. But they assured us that it was not related to the fact that we took the other substation out. And that was part of the question that I wanted to ask, because it obviously occurred shortly after the demolition and all the work on Broad Street that we had the loop on. And they encouraged us, I thought it was encouraging to hear that they did not find it related to that. So just wanted to follow up with you and share that conversation. Michelle answered my questions earlier about the permits and the outdoor seating. I see that all of that is getting some good use. Courtney, maybe you can help me here. We also got a little bit creative. The karate studio asked to use Monument Park as a place for their evening classes for a couple hours, a few days a week. Is that correct?
Yeah, they use it in the evening and then on Saturday for a few hours.
Okay. And so, that's a creative way for them to get outside and not be in the street area competing with the outdoor seating. I just want to make sure all of council was aware that that was occurring. I think it's a good call by staff to creatively find a way to help that business keep going and get those kids active doing some things. Over the weekend, I want to talk about a little situation that flared up, and I take full responsibility for creating confusion in the community. There was a young lady, I'm going to use her name, Georgia Frost. I spoke to her today, and she submitted an application to try and put together a way to generate a little fundraising opportunity for the Black Lives Matter movement that she cares about and is concerned about. And it came through the working channels in the office sometime in mid-June, and kind of through a question and answer, finally got to a point where the application was complete a week ago today on July 6th. And that was a Monday. And Courtney was good enough to shoot me an email that said, hey, any thoughts on this? This was submitted over the weekend, or whatever the date was officially was submitted. And I was having one of those Mondays where I was running around doing a lot of things, and I didn't read the application very clearly. I saw the Black Lives Matter at the top, and I scanned down to the bottom. The word fundraiser didn't really kick in as to what that meant to me. And I saw the request for additional garbage cans and stuff as using the gazebo, and I thought, okay, the person wants to use the gazebo. They're trying to do a peaceful demonstration of some type. We've already had that happen a couple times. I didn't think anything of it. So I responded in an email back that just said, seems reasonable to me. And the permit got issued. I discovered this weekend after the young lady advertised her event on Facebook, I was reminded by some other community members that, hey, we had put a hold on creating gatherings and space in the park. We had put a hold on vendors. We had told the Dexter Days folks no, the committee no. And frankly, I was surprised. I didn't know. I thought I'd missed something big time. And as a result, I had. So I was able to communicate with Courtney early on Monday. She clarified that the request did include a small amount of tables. This young lady had a creative setup proposed to go around the gazebo and kind of flare out radially. Which was not an awful idea, but still would likely potentially generate an uncontrolled amount of people that might want to visit and do that. So anyway, I called her this morning and spoke with both her and her mom, Jeanette, and they were both extremely helpful, extremely understanding. I will dare say they were disappointed. This young lady had worked hard to try and put together an application in a professional manner. I understand she's studying to go into politics of some type potentially, and want to make sure that I don't discourage her through our action and my mistake. So I'm openly apologizing. We did ask her or tell her that we were going to cancel that approval. There was a subsequent follow-up when the Dexter Days folks saw that there was an event going on. They rallied and submitted a similar application to try and do a similar thing. And I called Tracy Lambert today and talked to her as well. and explained to her the situation, explained what I missed, explained the confusion that I created. And anyway, I just wanted to say I'm sorry to everybody. I wanted to say sorry to that young lady, and sorry for any, I don't know if council got other questions or if I was maybe the only one that got emails, and apologize to Courtney and staff for not doing a good job of reading that thoroughly when you asked for my input. So I'll try not to rush through things in that manner. So that's my apology for the meeting here. And if anyone has any questions for me, I'm happy to take them. Or if you want to talk a little bit more about that situation, I'm happy to do that. But Georgia, if you're listening, and I think you are, my apologies to you. Keep up what you're doing. So my apologies. Okay, seeing no questions for me. You guys are easy on me. Thank you. We'll move on to council member reports. There were 2 in the packet this time. Paul, I'll turn it over to you first if you have any comment on yours.
Nothing other than the rules are the rules. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. And then second, I'll turn it over to Zach, please.
Yeah, I was just poking around through some old historical pictures of Dexter, and I found this fire truck, which according to several folks that know much better than me, this was one of the actual fire trucks that the Dexter Fire Department, before it had an area, had at the time that the current building was opened. And so I thought that would be fun to share. If you are at the parades, this is the truck that you see go back and forth. I especially like that it had the crank starter on the front and the wood spoke wheels. And that's a lot of folks hanging on the side of those running boards.
So that's the one they store in Station 2 out in Dexter Township?
Yep.
Oh, nice. It looks a lot redder now.
Well, they didn't have money for color photographs in 1959 at homecoming.
I'm teasing. I'm teasing. Gotcha, cool. Okay, any questions for Zach or Paul on their reports? Okay, so we're down to item J, which is consent agenda. I see Donna Fisher has her hand up. Reminder that there's no discussion on consent agenda, and we'll be taking a roll call vote at the conclusion of the motion and the second, please.
I move we approve the 2 items listed on the consent agenda. Bills and payroll in the amount of $633,983.17 and the Brinegar Land Composting Agreement.
Motion by Ms. Fisher. Jim Smith, your hand is up.
Yep, I'll second.
Okay, second by Jim Smith. Thank you. Ms. Jones, if you would call the vote to approve the 2 items on the consent agenda as made by the motion,
Yes.
please.
Bell,
Yes.
Cousins,
Yes.
Michelle,
Abstain.
Smith,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Knight,
Yes.
Keel.
Yes. Thank you. Consent agenda carries 6-0 with 1 abstain. Thank you, Zach. We have no old business this evening, so we have a full lineup of new business. Let's just start down the line here. L1 is the consideration of the Planning Commission recommendation to approve text amendments to our special land uses in the RD Research and Development District, which is section 17.13 of the zoning ordinance.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Cousins.
Support.
Second, was that Bell?
Yes.
Thanks, Scott. Second by Bell.
Listed on page 74.
I think that's right. Let me get to that.
Yes.
Okay, Jim. Yeah, Jim, thanks. If you can check me as we go. Okay. All right, as on page 74. How about discussion? Any questions on council? Do we need a staff update? Michelle, do you want to say anything in addition that's not in the packet?
I have nothing to add to my report. The applicant has joined us this evening in case you'd have any questions from him. John Carlson's representing Northern United tonight.
Welcome, John. Thanks for attending. I'm not seeing or hearing any council hands.
Question.
Okay, Zach, go ahead, sir.
It doesn't describe any setbacks for this. Are there any? Can they go right to the lot line, or would they meet the setbacks for a principal or accessory building?
It would be, they would have to meet the setbacks for the principal building. The fact that they can't go larger than 20,000 square feet would also, and the fact that they have to be within 25 feet of the tasting room door would ensure that, excuse me, at least at Northern United, they wouldn't go beyond, but it is the principal building setback.
Was there any discussion of putting in limits for the hours of operation? I see right now it mirrors the tasting room.
Correct.
But if the tasting room was open till 2, this would mean that they'd be able to have outdoor patio till 2 in the morning.
Correct. Correct. Planning Commission did not discuss, nor was it raised as a concern.
Other questions? Zach, or got them all covered?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Oh, Jim Smith has his hand. Thanks, Jim.
Yeah, at the planning commission meeting, Michelle, you pointed out that this is just the text amendment change, and the applicant would still have to come and do a special land use request.
Yes, sir, you are correct.
And so I think the hours of operation and stuff would probably be applied to that rather than to the text amendment.
That's accurate. Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Sure.
Okay, thanks, Jim.
I think John is driving.
I would say somebody's in the car. That's good. Thank
I don't know if you can hear me.
We can hear your bleaker.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay, John. Did you have anything you wanted to add to council?
No, just thank you for thinking about it. We're all just trying our best here, but thank you for your time.
Okay, appreciate you joining the meeting, John. Okay, seeing no further people waving at me or hands up, Ms. Jones, would you please call the vote to approve the text amendments?
Yes. Fisher,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Knight,
Yes.
Cousins,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Bell,
Yes.
Gale.
Yes. Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank
A
you,
new bit-
council.
Thank you, Michelle. New business item L2 is a consideration of another planning commission recommendation. This one on the Encore Theater conditional rezoning application and their request for changes to the approved conditional rezoning agreement. Donna has her hand up.
I'll make that motion to approve.
Okay, and Jim Smith, you have a hand up also, please?
I'll second that.
Okay, so motion by Fisher, second by Smith. Okay, Michelle, if you would give a brief intro of what's gone on here and why this is back in front of us, I'd appreciate it, please.
Okay, so this is back in front of you because when we went to have the three different parties execute the approved conditional rezoning, the schools had second thoughts and decided that the language in the approved document was not something that they wanted to enter in because it would make them subject to zoning. And as you all are aware, school districts are not subject to zoning by state law. And so they've initiated changes, and the applicant, per the proper procedures, has submitted them for your consideration. And the changes, the changes clarify three things: that it's a land contract purchase, that the terms would only be binding on the Encore Theater after it closes on the property, and pursuant to the land contract or the terms of it, and that neither the Dexter Community Schools nor any of its properties become bound by the terms of agreement in the event that the Encore Theater would, that their land contract interest would terminate for any reason. So Planning Commission, excuse me, I'm so sorry, conducted the public hearing. There were no comments. There was a brief discussion after the motion was made to recommend approval, and that discussion centered on the city attorney's review of the of the document and his preference. Although he approved what was written or what was being requested, he would have had a preference that language be included that Dexter Community Schools inform the city if in the event that there was some sort of termination of the Encore's land contract. The, excuse me, by the time the city attorney got with the school's attorney and the school's attorney could follow up with a change, that additional language, the packet was already done, and procedurally, I did not feel comfortable forwarding it to Planning Commission without having heard from the applicant. So at the meeting when this came up, the applicant was able to make the request, and subsequently the Planning Commission recommended approval with the additional language that the school's attorney sent, requiring the schools to inform the city in the event that Encore doesn't perform or complete its land contract interest. And that's all I've got for you.
Okay, thank you for that.
And Dan is here representing the Encore Theater if you've got any questions for him.
Okay, so that, okay, I see. And then, so the schools get added as a joiner
Right, instead of as an actual party to the agreement.
instead of as a party.
Excuse me.
And Scott's looked at this?
Yes, Scott has looked at it.
Okay. Any other questions by council?
No, I just do want to clarify that public schools are not subject to zoning for instructional facilities or athletic facilities. If they decided to open up a cafe or something for whatever reason, that would be for billboard because it's neither instructional or athletic facility.
Agreed, Zach. Thank you for the clarification.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. I don't see any hands being waved, so Ms. Jones, if you'd call the vote, please. To approve. To approve the
I
recommendation.
want to, yeah, I want to mention that Michelle had sent something out with a suggested motion today. It's a little, believe it's a little bit different than what was in the packet.
Right. So if the motion makers, thank you, Carol, the motion makers should reference staff's update dated June 10th.
We got it this afternoon and evening. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So we're okay with that?
Yes.
Okay. Going forward. Smith.
Yep.
Michelle,
Yes.
Yes.
Fisher. Don, I didn't hear you.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Bell,
Yes.
Knight,
Yes.
Cousins,
Yes.
Keo.
Yes. Motion
you.
carries. New business item.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. New business item L3 is consideration of the tap fee clarification for 8099 Main and 8093 Main.
So there is, you received the information in your packet. You also received the attorney client privileged confidential correspondence from the city attorney. Mr. Brower is considering the purchase and redevelopment of the two buildings, formerly known as the Red Brick buildings. And part of his due diligence, excuse me, having a little trouble tonight, guys. Thank you for your patience. Part of his due diligence is to make sure he understands all of his costs, and has requested what the possible tap fee might be. So using your connection fee resolution, in other words, your tap fee policy, I've gone through and calculated what the existing REU allocation or credits would be, both for non-residential and for residential, and then provided a breakdown of what the incremental cost would be. For the non-residential, it would appear that there would not be an incremental fee. But for the residential, because Mr. Brower would be proposing two new units, one in each building, there would be a tap fee for those. I've provided a breakdown based on my interpretation of the policy, and this is how I've applied it consistently over my tenure. One of the things we also did is to ask the city attorney for his feedback and analysis, and he pointed out that the request from Mr. Brower actually would combine, if combined, result in a reduction of factors, which is not something your policy allows. Your policy doesn't allow refunds as it pertains to credits that have already been given or payments that have already been made. He basically has said that the city's analysis correctly calculates the incremental tap fee, and that it would be required if the two new units were to be put in. And I think the not the applicant, but Allison Bishop is present if you've got any questions for her.
Okay, so we're looking for a motion from council to either support the staff recommendation, which has been supported by the city attorney's review, or if council feels otherwise, a motion to accept what Mr. Brower has requested in his letter on page 128, is it, I think? Is there someone willing to make a motion one way or the other here? I see Jim Smith has his hand up. Thank you.
Yes, I'll make a motion to accept the staff calculations of the tap fees.
Okay, motion by Smith,
I'll second.
second by Ms. Knight. Thank you, Julie.
You're welcome.
Let me just get that written down. Smith, Knight. Okay, is there any discussion by council or questions by council? Jim, you have your hand up still?
Oh.
Well, that's okay. Just making sure you go first if you want. You made the motion.
Nope.
Okay, I don't have any questions either. Michelle, the most important thing you said is consistently, and as long as we're doing it, the same way over time, that's what's important to me. And I'm glad that we took the time to have the attorney, validate that for us. So this would, if we take your recommendation, then if I'm understanding it right, each of those addresses would be required to pay the equivalent of one additional REU, residential REU tap fee?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, does anybody else have other questions on this? Okay, Ms. Ms. Jones, if you would call the vote to accept the motion that Smith made, to accept the recommendation from staff and city attorney?
Yes. Knight,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Bell,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Cousins,
Yes?
Yes.
Keo.
Okay, thank you. We deleted new business item L4 as part of the approval of the agenda. And we're down to new business item L5, excuse me, which is now a discussion item. I believe it's council member Michelle's asked for this to be on the agenda. So this is a discussion of basically a resolution that he's drafted to accept Dexter Area Fire Department needs assessment as the minimum basis for facility needs. If it's appropriate, Zach, and you don't mind, I'd turn it over to you since you asked for the item to be on the agenda.
Yep, I don't need to do much discussion. Mr. Smith made the change, so I'll let him lead the discussion. But as I was looking through materials, we never formally accepted this document. Actually, the needs assessment and the staff assessment. And as a good practice, we ought to start with something as our minimum basis. Here, you know, if you watch House Hunters International or regular, here are the 3 things we need. And it's great. We can say, do you want to spend less on a fire station? But if it only has 8,000 square feet and in order to meet the mission, it needs 16,000 square feet, that's important for us to know and have as a basis for design. So I put this together as kind of cleaning up a lack of housekeeping previously. And that's all that I have. That's why I introduced it. And
Okay.
I'll refer to Mr. Smith for any discussion he needs.
Jim, do you have any initial
Yeah.
comments?
Yeah, I was just trying to click on the hand there.
Oh, no problem.
Okay. On the resolution, I was just curious about the second whereas, be line 20, about the comment about the station, current station becoming antiquated and required attention as early as 97. I was wondering what the source of that was.
My neighbor across the street, Phil Arbor, who is village president.
Okay, thank you.
So one of the questions I had, Zach, and I didn't even realize this, and I guess I'd like a chance to maybe look through it a little clearer, but the version of the fire chief's recommendation for the station is different than the one I remember seeing in 2016. And I don't remember when it was updated. Obviously it's dated 2018, so that tells me when, but if you compare the previous versions, the chief's recommendation for the location of the station within the city has been changed. And I don't know that we have had a lot of discussion on that other than, you know, we did buy property last year, but this was predated that.
Where's the question in there?
Well, I guess the question is, if in 2016, the chief thought that the fire station should be on the north end of town, why is it that the report got changed so that now it's okay on the south end?
Well, I would presume it's evolving information similar to how in March we were told that it wasn't important to wear face masks, but now we're told it's important. When you figure out how big a building is, there are national standards that say if this many square feet, this size of the property, this size of the building, this size of the property. And so as the mission becomes clear, I would presume that that dictates part of that. But the chief is here. I would welcome him to answer that.
I will admit that I didn't get a chance to compare everything between the two documents, but I intend to, and I'd like to, before we adopt it as an official needs supporting basis, I'd like to know what else has changed.
We've had this for 2 years, the needs assessment.
I asked Courtney if she could figure out when we saw this, and I don't know that I could put my fingers on it.
Yeah, I have the 2016 one, but I can't find the 2018 one. But the needs assessment from that David created, yes, we've had since whatever the date is on it.
Chief, if you're there, we'll have to figure out how to get you off the mute so I can call on you, sir.
Okay, there we go.
Are you there? Okay, great.
Yeah. So, yeah, just to clarify, there was 2 different versions of this. The first one in 2016, when I got here, there was a lot of discussion about wanting to do something with the station. I put together a document that indicated, what are the best things that we could have, and part of that recommendation was, what would be an ideal location if no other things were considered for the fire station. And I did recommend the northern side of the town, so that we had a much clearer access to get out into Webster Township. Obviously, you have to pick and choose, and here is what are you going to get to faster out of the city, either Webster or Dexter, because we only have one way out each way, and it's a long ways around. So after a lot of stuff with the facilities committee and looking at all of the possible sites, there simply was nothing available on the north side of town, or really we were specifically, my talk was the Mast Road area near the bridge there would be a good spot for the fire station, with nothing else being considered. And then there was a time period when before we went to the public the first time, talking about, what do you call the center of a build, or where should the fire station be centrally located? And that discussion was defining central, and central could be geographic, central could be hazard based, central could be employee based. And so in 2018, during all of that, I did modify, looking at all of those things, including available property. And so ultimately the 2018 recommended building into the middle of the city, or closer to the middle of the city, which included the MAF site. So that was right there prior, when we were starting to do the public forums with David, is when that second version came out, just for clarification.
Okay,
And-
thanks.
If I may ask of the chief, for those who have not participated in the generation of a fire station needs assessment, could you describe the process and how these numbers are generated?
You talking about the building square foot numbers?
Yep.
Sure. If you go back to the very back of my needs assessment that I put together for the station, and I think it starts on page of your packet. Hold on.
140.
Actually, about 206 of your packet. And the very last chapter in my document talks about National Institute for Building Services. And there's a rather extensive list throughout there of different organizations that talk about fire stations and what square footages are needed to perform certain operations. It's not, it doesn't say that you have to have X number of square foot to sleep, X number of square foot to just because it's a bunk room, or just because it's a maintenance room, but what functions are you going to do in there? And so those square footages are all derived from national standards, national consensus to put together. And of course, you don't have to have a single room for all that function. You have to have the square footage for it. So fortunately, the fire station that's being proposed now is actually smaller than what it very, very well could have been. had we not combined some functions into a couple different rooms. So those are all the documents that are used to derive those numbers. There's no single document out there that's going to tell you exactly what size you have to have. For instance, for the Bay Area for fire trucks, it's not going to tell you need X number of square foot, but what it does tell you or highly recommend is that you need 4 foot in between trucks. You need 4 foot in between the front of the building and the front of the fire truck. You need 14 by 14 doors. So it gives you all these other little numbers in there, and then you got to try to figure out which square footage works for you.
Okay. And one more question off the top of my head now. This needs assessment for the function and the apparatus and all those things, are they based on the operations and mission of the fire department as exists today or at the time the building is open versus 20 years from now?
Yeah, I try to look at it both as, you know, obviously we don't want to go small for what we have today. We definitely got to meet that need. But as I've talked about throughout my tenure here is setting up the city of Dexter for success in the future. And I think that, you know, things like having 4 bunk rooms, the bunk rooms is really the biggest thing for the future. Everything else here is right sized for today and for a fire department of 25 people with the combination of full-time and paid on call. So I really don't think that Dexter area fire department is going to need more bays than what we've programmed into this for the next 30 years. I think the right number of bunk rooms was 4. I don't see us being bigger than that over the next 30 years. So I'll say that this is setting Dexter City up for the future.
Thank you. I'm good for now.
Chief, with the run percentage drastically decreasing in the city, I mean, you just saw the June numbers, which will be in the DAFD packet that came out, or which are in the packet that came out this week. The city had only 21% of the runs in June. And that's not including the shared runs. If you add the shared runs into that calculation, it's like 15%. I'm rounding. But with the runs decreasing, why wouldn't you be pushing for more bays and people out in the townships as opposed to right here in town farther away from where all the runs are?
Well,
it just doesn't make any sense to me, and nobody talks about that.
Well, I've actually talked about it a lot, and I'll try it again here, is that right now the runs are down to that 20%, and that may very well be a good figure. But over the course of my time here in 5 years, it's been closer to 33% or 30%, somewhere in there for all 3 municipalities. So it's roughly the same number of runs to each municipality.
We haven't seen that in 2.5 years, Chief.
Well, I'm looking at the averages, Sean, and it may be going down a little bit, but let me put it this way, is that 30%, and even if you want to say 20% of the runs that occur in the city, I cover 84 square miles, and the city's only 2 square miles of that, and so roughly. And so the call density is much higher in the city than it is out in the municipalities. The other piece of that is that the residents, our employee density is more. We have more people that live closer to the city of Dexter, which is where I need the most equipment, because those people can respond faster to a city station, get the equipment on the road, and get it going where it needs to go. I understand your thought process, and I understand how it looks, but that's simply not the truth or the facts of it. Is you want the equipment where your employee base is, which is closer to the city. And even though the city only accounts for 1/3 or a little less than 1/3 of the runs, those runs are occurring within a 2 mile square area, where the other 60% or 70% of the runs is spread out very geographically over 82, 81 square miles. And then if you want to look at it, another popular number we use for runs is runs per capita. I think the city's per capita is roughly the same as each of the individual townships. If I remember correctly, it's about 2,000, or what is it, 4,000 in each, somewhere in that neighborhood. So truly the city, from a cost standpoint, uses a fair share of the services that we provide. And then the non-emergency services that we provide, for instance, public education to the schools, all of that's located in the city. Nearly 100%, if not 100, then 99% of our inspection services and plans review, building inspections, construction, all of that is in the city. We do relatively little of that out into the township. So when you put it all together, the city's not underutilizing compared to anybody else. It's just a matter of how you look at it.
So Chief, in the other report, I'm not sure, I appreciate what you're saying. I'm not sure I agree with all that. I'm not sure how the density has to do with or affects why the city station should be twice the size of either of the other stations. That doesn't ring a bell very well for me. But in the other report, the ESCI report, why when they analyzed the run data back on pages 259 of our report, why did they only use 2/3 of the calls in their analysis?
What do you mean for the runtime?
Yeah, they did the future delivery system models on page 43 and 44 of the report. And I don't mind, by the way, if you have to go back and ask the question. I don't expect you to know everything that's in here. But why did they exclude 2/3 of the calls as part of their evaluation?
I would go look at that, but I could tell you off the top of my head, a couple of things come to mind. One is they probably excluded shared calls, and they probably excluded non-emergency calls, because if you recall, our mandate by NFPA standard is to reach 90% of our calls within 4-minute time frame. And that only includes emergency calls. So they skim off the top. They skim off.
Have we lost the chief?
We may have. I wasn't sure if it was just me or not. Thanks
No,
for
he's
saying.
frozen.
It looks frozen to me. He's there, but he can't. It's not transmitting.
Okay, I was getting the gist of what he was
There he
saying.
is. He's back. He's back. I saw him move.
Chief, we missed your last minute of comment.
Okay, so sorry, I think I will have to go back and look at that more thoroughly to make sure, but off the top of my head, I'm going to say that they probably shaved off all of the shared calls.
Okay.
And then our mandate is to, by NFPA standard, is that our goal, there's no law or Nazi cops that are going to put you in jail for it, but the goal of the fire service is to reach 90% of our calls within 4 minutes. So they automatically take 10% of the calls off the top that are not within that 4-minute range, and then use all the other calls to base all their analysis on. If that makes sense.
Okay. All right. Thanks. I tried to find that explanation in the thing, and I may not have seen it, or if it's there, I missed it. So thank you for that.
Yep.
Alex.
Hi. Okay. I just had a couple of things I wanted to confirm. I was looking at the women's and men's restroom, shower, locker room combination, and it says that there is 25 personal lockers within the men's section. However, I'm not seeing the same within the women's. Is that something that's going to be there as well?
No, we have to make an educated guess proportionately and try to separate out as to what our dynamics or demographics may be in the future. And right now I have an authorized group or authorized staffing level of 25 paid on call and 9 full-time staff. So we're trying to make sure that we have enough lockers or combination of lockers so that everybody has them when they need them. I can't put, the same amount of men as I can women. historically, if you look, less than 25% of any department. Actually, numbers much lower than that. But there's a very small number of women that come into the fire service. So we try to accommodate what we think our projections are. Now, there's no law or rule that says that men and women can't share the same locker room. For instance, in the Webster station, we only have one locker room, and we have two restrooms, showers in that station. So anybody using the locker room has to take their stuff, take their clothing, their towels and whatever when they shower, and they go into a secure restroom shower area. So, you know, all we can do is try to project where we're at. There's no hardcore rules on that.
So the locker room is separate from the restrooms then?
It will be, yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Alex. Other questions or discussion on this topic? Okay.
Well, I would ask that it be placed on the next agenda as unfinished business.
Okay. Okay, thank you. New business item L6 is a similar item. The discussion of the police sheriff needs assessment as the minimum basis for facility needs. Zach, I'll let you start again since you asked for this, I believe.
Yep, well, I asked for action item, so I'll just give the introduction and let Mr. Smith start with the discussion item of it.
That'd be great.
Similar to the fire station facility, we've had needs assessment generated by police, sheriff's department, and other folks. Mr. Gasson worked with them on this, I believe. So I thought it would be good for us to have a common starting point for discussions, cleaning up things that we probably should have done a while back. That's all.
Okay, thanks, Zach. Jim, do you have anything to add? You started to talk a little bit about police in the workshop.
Well, the first thing I have is just one minor question or correction on the resolution under line 130. The whole rest of the resolution refers to the county sheriff's department. You know, the substation, and I'm wondering why in 130 all of a sudden it refers to the City of Dexter Police Facility.
It was a choice by the editor, is that it's a facility owned by the City of Dexter used for police. I could have gone with constabulary, but I thought that was a bit highfalutin. It's not owned by the sheriff, so perhaps we could say city-owned facility to be leased to the Washtenaw County Sheriff Department.
Yeah, something like that, to clarify. I have no other questions at this time.
Okay. Chief, do you still have your hand up, Chief Smith?
Yeah, just real quick, I think if you go back to the resolution for the staffing study too, it changes. The first line says City of Dexter, and then there's a couple, 2 or 3 lines that say Village of Dexter. You probably want to clean that up.
Well, that's because we actually did those things when we were a village. This activity predates us being a city.
Okay, my bad, sorry.
Yep, it's okay. Okay, thank you both. Okay, well, I guess my thought on this is, I don't know that I have much comment on the actual numbers necessarily relative to the police facility in terms of needs, but at some point in time, this gets awfully expensive is all I guess I'm saying, and it seems adequately. It seems like that if the fire station does move, that there will be quite a bit of room at 8140 that, anyway, could be used to accommodate those needs, is my thought. But are there
We
other
have
council
Mr.
members that
Gasson
have
speak to
comments?
this?
Go ahead, Zach. Sorry, please.
Yep, sorry. I see Mr. Gasson is joining us. Maybe he could speak to this since he was part of the development of this needs assessment.
To speak to what?
The document and where the numbers came from.
Oh, I'm not, like I said, I'm not debating where the numbers came from. I get that. I'm just saying, I don't necessarily think that the station needs to move. You know, you have two choices. I think you could probably create the same amount of space for a lot less money at
Isn't that for,
the current spot.
isn't that discussion for the next item, this consideration where we designate the sheriff facility and not for this one? This is the needs assessment
Yeah,
discussion.
it could go either part. It's all part of the same story. Yep. Okay, well, I'm not seeing a lot of hands or seeing people talk on this item, so I'm going to keep going then to L7.
I would ask that it come back as unfinished business on the next agenda item. Or the next agenda.
Okay. Okay, new business item L7. Let me get the, is a resolution to designate Dexter Ann Arbor Meadowview as the location for the police sheriff facility. This is a consideration item we're back to, I believe.
Yep.
All right, I will move this agenda or this resolution.
Okay, so motion by Michelle's,
I'll second.
second by Knight. Okay, Zach, you asked that it be on here. You want to lead the discussion? Oh, Jim has his hand up, I guess.
I just wanted to point out, I think in line item 140 of the resolution seems to be missing the word property. Whereas
Yep.
city-owned property has been shown.
I agree, and I would include that in my movement for the resolution.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah, so we've had lots of discussions on this. We've seen the plans. We know that this location is adequate enough to meet the space needs. It has a lot of benefits that the current location doesn't, namely that we get more than 12 parking spaces back into general circulation or for park use. This provides opportunity for closed parking. It provides more discretion for undercover sheriff to enter and exit the facility. Same thing for witnesses. And so I put it out there for our consideration to make a decision.
How did we arrive at 12 parking spaces that they use?
When I frequently walk downtown with my car, there are 6 police cruisers. And so if there are 6 police cruisers, there are 6 private cars. I excluded when there are shifts changing over, and that actually be 6 more. So that's how I came up with the math, walks with my dog by the river.
But we don't actually have 6 people operating out of there at any one time.
We don't, but the sheriff's department does. They support the other communities nearby. Unless they're just parking their old vehicles here, but I do see them move.
All right, I guess I'd like that to be clarified. Because I mean, we only have at any one time 2 or 3 people on that we're paying for anyway. Unless I'm misunderstanding.
The substation in Dexter Township that was part of the fire substation is not used by Washtenaw County Sheriff Department anymore. So that support staff comes out of our building. Same thing for Webster Township.
Yeah, but that's part of the 3 that we pay for, and in our collaboration, the most that we have on is 3, plus the lieutenant or sergeant could be in town as well. They tend to work out of the silos. Well, the sergeant would work out of this station, so it would be 4 max. And then the lieutenant works out of off of Zede.
Ms.
So
Fisher?
there will probably normally be 4 max. But I don't know how they do the car rotation.
Donna, do you have your hand up, please?
Yeah, I think I'm confused here. I'm trying to decide why we would be required to build something large enough to accommodate those folks if they really should be using another station. Why am I bound to that size?
Yeah, no, this was designed for our collaboration, and we do house the officers in our collaboration here, but it's not like SIO or something. I mean, it's just Dexter, Webster. We're a group. We choose to have them here. If we didn't want to have a station, they would just house them on Zeeb, but we choose to have them here so that we have the presence. So
Okay.
it's not like overbuilt for SIO's deputies or anything. It's just for our collaborative deputies.
Well, but we could use Webster and Dexter if there's space there.
I don't know that their facilities were built with space for sheriff.
Okay, that's what I took it to mean, is that they had space, but they didn't use it. Okay, I'm good.
And they could choose to just let them come out of SIO if we weren't here.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Fisher, I would say that I wouldn't mind us rebuilding the world's smallest police station in Monument Park either. I think that'd be a tourist attraction too, and be highly, highly visible, especially if we use that old yellow brick.
We all grew up with it. We loved it. We felt bad when they took it down.
Donna, thanks. Are you all set?
Yeah.
Okay, Scott, you have your hand up, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a question. What is the purpose or reason or motivation for taking this action at this point in time? As I understand it, the police facility, the sheriff facility at Meadowview would only be built if the fire station is built, and we don't know that that's going to happen because it's in the hands, or going to be in the hands, of the voters. So what's the impetus for doing this right now? What does it gain us?
Well, I have a couple of motivations. One is that trying to break down the big decision into smaller, easier, bite-sized decisions so that they're easier for us to make. The other part is it has been emphasized that folks want to know what our plans are. And so we can say, council voted on this date, we want to put the fire station here. Council voted on this date, this is where we want the police station, and similar for City Hall. Now, I will see that if a ballot measure isn't passed, that's a very good reason for us to potentially renew this discussion. Well, and it'll be a new council anyway, so it'll be up for grabs again.
Paul, were you raising your hand?
Well, I was.
Or waving?
I was. Whether it's 6 or 5, I think I used the word 5, maybe 4, but I've counted 5 cars here at times. So I'm assuming that somebody is moving in and out when I have 5 cars there, and I'm assuming that there's somebody that's parked somewhere. I've seen what I believe private cars back there behind the fire station that are parked, that I assume are the police that are using that for parking when they pick up their car. So, I don't think we ought to get hung up whether it's 8 or 12. The location is a more important thing in the long run, but if we want to cut it down to 8, that's a little less overhead protection that they would have out there. If they have a couple and they just, I guess the rookies have to clean their cars off and the veterans don't have to. They'll figure it out themselves, okay? But the point that I'm making is that if we're going to make a decision based upon something, it ought to be based upon a needs assessment. And I think that's what Zach has tried to do that here, to designate these types of things and to designate this spot as that area there. And so I'm in favor of this. I've said this before. I don't disagree with Sean that they could be down at the other spot, but we haven't had that discussion of what we're going to have at the other spot yet. And that could generate a lot of discussion of what it would do for the city and how we could use that site to a better use for the community. And when we get into those areas, whether it's in a charrette or it's just sitting around a table, when we can do that, I think we're going to come up with some interesting things about how we can use that site. I know one thing I've heard loud and clear from a number of people is that they do not want that site sold to anybody. They want that to remain in the city because it's between two parks. It's part of our heritage. So let's not, in their opinion, do anything for that site that would modify it to be something that it could possibly be historical. And particularly as it relates to the two parks and the library and the need for parking in the area. And if you don't believe that, just go down there any day. And since the library is not open, people park there all the time now and use their cars or their cars to get there, obviously, and then use their bikes to get on the line or their walk. They park up there all the time because it's an empty lot. They do it for the farmers market as well. There's a need for that activity down there, and there's a need for parking down there. And we have to address that. We're going to be, in the next few years, connected to a trail that will lead clear to Chelsea, almost up to Stockbridge and around, and eventually down to North Territorial and Hudson Mills Park. The activity that we see now, in my opinion, will not be even close to what we'll see in the future. And we're right in the middle of the hub of it. And so we have to realize those types of things and provide bathroom facilities, water stations, areas where people can park. If we think this is good for us, for our community, financially, then we ought to be able to start providing for this. And that facility is not going to be best used, in my opinion, to have a substation there for police. It's taking up space, it's valuable area that we can be used for anything, some other things. I want us to think in the future. So those that say it can be used there, the answer is yes, it could be. Should it be used there? That's another question.
Thank you, Paul. Jim, I see you have a hand up, and then Donna also. We'll follow.
Yeah, I'm just going to concur with Scott. I think it's a little early to make this final decision on the location. I think we still have time to determine that at a future date.
Do you have a date in mind, Jim?
As we get closer to, ballot resolutions and stuff like that.
All right, thank you. So I just want to know.
Donna?
Yeah.
Wait, Zach, we got Donna first, please.
When we're talking about the need for parking and the activity that's going to be down there, does anyone else take responsibility for providing those amenities with us or along beside us? I don't see, just because it came through Dexter, that I should take care of housing all the amenities that go with people that are going to jump on it and ride to Stockbridge. I'm trying to figure out how to work with somebody, to partner with somebody to get those sites along the way, so people might not get on in Dexter, they might get on down the road if there was better parking. That's a piece of it that I don't think we've ever really talked about. That's all.
Yeah, it's a delicate balance, Donna, between the economic engine that is part of the recreational world and, what it creates and causes in terms of traffic and, population increase, density, so to speak, of people on any given, nice day.
Well, right now, I don't know. It's not complete. I don't know exactly what I need.
Yeah, I understand. It's a good point.
I'm done.
Okay, Zach, sorry, I didn't see your hand. I was looking at the blue hand, so I'm assuming you're
worries.
waving something.
Yep. So Don and I didn't practice this, but I was actually going to answer that. The Linden Township Hall has a spur to the trail along M52 to act as a trailhead. So folks can head out there. Also, the state rec areas, they're sprinkling in little trailhead parking spots along the way. So we're not the only one having to bear all that burden. I would point out that we need to have some idea by August 11th, as I recall. That's when we have to submit language for ballots. And so that leaves us basically 2 meetings. I would, for those who have said we don't need to decide it now, I would ask what additional information you would need in order to be able to make a decision in 2 more meetings.
Paul, do you have your hand up or are you?
No, I'm,
Oh, that was head, scratching the head?
just-
Okay,
I've scratched my head trying to figure out everybody.
okay. All right, well, we have a motion by Michelle, second by Knight, on the resolution to designate Dexter, Ann Arbor, and Meadowview as the site for the police sheriff facility or whatever we're calling it. Is there additional discussion on that? Okay, Ms. Jones, please call the vote.
Cousins,
Yes.
Knight,
Yes.
Bell,
No.
Fisher,
No,
Michelle's,
No.
Smith,
No.
Keo.
No. So that motion fails 5-2 at this point. New business item L8 is, get the reading down, is the approval of the contract with Partners in Architecture for architectural design services for the fire police facility. That probably needs to be modified since we just decided not to put fire or police down there.
Right, well, it would have been requested 2 ways. One way by Councilmember Michelle's first, and then a second way by Councilmember Smith, which is in the memo. So I suppose it could go either way depending on how the person wants to make the motion.
Right. Is there a motion oh, Jim has his hand up. Sorry, Jim. Got it.
Okay. I'd like to make the motion to approve the contract with Partners in Architecture for the architectural design services for the fire station project. And that's the wording that I presented last meeting when we had a discussion item about it.
And it's in the memo.
So fire station project instead of fire police facility.
Which page is the memo, Courtney?
279.
Second paragraph.
Okay.
I realized that there were 2 requests were slightly different, so I didn't want to list them in 2 different items. So I just made 1 item and 2 lines in the memo.
Thank you.
All right. So Courtney, what would approval of this document initiate and when?
Well, then we could start the schematic design, I believe, is the first step. But we would need to appropriate some funds because we don't have this in the budget.
Well, yeah, I was going to go there next. So what page is the cost of each phase then?
It's a percent based on the percent. So let's see, I had that in one of these drafts. You know what, that might have been in a previous, I think I broke that down in a previous memo. Hold on, let me see if I can.
But it's not in the packet, right?
Well, no, I forgot to include it in the packet. You caught me. Okay.
I wasn't trying
I
to
know.
catch anybody. I'm not, that's not my
I know, I'm trying to keep up with all these things and it's hard. Okay, so we talked about this partners contracts.
John?
Yeah, Jim?
Yeah, my intent is to not start anything with that. It's just to put the contract in place. And then at a future meeting, we would discuss whether we want to accelerate the timeline and begin the phase one. There's no intent of, when approving this contract, that we actually start the phases at this time.
Yeah, so it's approximately
52 to 54,000 for the schematic, but not
Yeah.
requesting that at this time.
And that's based upon the 12% or something that's on the one page. I can't remember.
It's
what, 302?
12%, right? And then so the fee is 6 3/4%
Of the owner's
and
budget.
of the $450,000, which was the estimate. So that 12% of that is around $54,000. It's a little bit less because I had factored it at 6.5%. So it's somewhere in the $50,000 range for the schematic design.
So I'm trying to understand, we're approving a contract, but we're not approving them to start. And
Why
what
wouldn't we wait
is
until
the
we're ready
trigger?
for them to start?
I'm sorry, who was asking? Am I talking over somebody?
Yeah. Sorry, I was gonna ask if we're
We gotta
approving
get
a
you-
contract, but we're telling them not to do anything. Why don't we just wait until we're ready for them to do something?
Well, that's kind of where I am. I mean, why would we take this action in that manner at an undefined stage of anything?
Did we get a second on this? We got a lot of discussion.
I'm sorry. You're right. No, we do not, that I'm aware of. I believe we have a motion by.
No, I
Smith.
don't see one either.
I'll second for discussion.
All right. Thanks, Zach. Appreciate that point of order by somebody. Appreciate that. My fault there.
We could always ask David too for his comment on, approving it this time, what that means to him.
I think I'm on mute unless you can hear me.
We can.
Okay. For me, it doesn't really matter so much unless you're ready to start. I would say if you have an inclination to get things ready upon the approval of the voters to do the work, you're getting yourself ahead of schedule. And in one of the scenarios that gets you out of the ground before winter construction start, which will obviously save you time and money. We can go back and look at that schedule, refine that decision for you, but that would be the reason to get a start now. But start the work, there's no practical reason to do the contract other than to get it behind you and out of the way, which I'm all for that.
Yeah, I'm sure you are, pal. Thanks.
Well, obviously, there's no billing to the contract unless there's work. It's just the idea of getting something set up and kind of out of the way.
And that was my intent at this time, was to just get it squared away. And then, we have to decide whether a future meeting, whether we want to accelerate the schedule and start it early before the election, or whether to wait until after the election starts to start it.
Okay, Scott, you have your hand up, I believe.
Yeah, thanks. Just a comment. I don't see the need to take this action at this time, so I won't be supporting it. Thanks.
Okay. Yep, thank you.
John?
Yeah, Jim.
I'll withdraw the motion, but I would like it on the next agenda.
Okay. Is that okay to withdraw, Zach?
Sure.
Do we want to call it a postpone?
No,
No, I'll withdraw.
because that would
Withdraw,
require a
okay.
vote.
Okay, yeah.
All right, so withdraw and move to July 27?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Does
thank you.
anybody need anything besides, it was back on February 4th, the first meeting in February, that the cost breakdown, so I can update that based on the fee that's in there. Does anybody else need anything else?
Is
Yes.
it based upon, is it based upon just the fire station facility, not the police then now?
I have to recall what number I
Well, I mean, in light of the vote we just took. I mean,
yeah, I'll go back and make sure it's only based on fire, yes.
okay. Okay.
I don't remember which number I used. It's only 600,000.
Right. What's 600,000 amongst friends? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I appreciate it.
Was there something else, Zach?
Yep. There's going to be an escalation price because, as I recall, these numbers were based on a summer 2020 start. So it'd be good for Mr. Gasson to update us what the estimated cost would be.
Yeah, and I did that for the millage language too.
Yep. And I would be more comfortable acting on this once we have decided where the police station is going to go, so we don't have to mess around with 2 contracts. That's just my 2 pennies.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to move on to new business item L9, which is discussion. Wait a minute. Discussion?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry, I was staring at the memo and it said consideration, but it is discussion from the agenda, right?
Oh, Lord, probably.
No, I just read it wrong, Courtney. I was just trying to keep, I had them all organized on a separate sheet of paper because, anyway. Okay, so 9 is a discussion item of the resolution to put a millage request on the November ballot. And I believe Councilmember Michelle's requested this item.
Yeah, and it was requested as a discussion.
Okay, so I'll let him lead that, please.
Well, it was mostly for us to determine if there's any additional information that we need. We've said the escalation cost, because every year we put it off, it gets more and more expensive. So we want to make sure we have that. And that's all that I was really interested in making sure we had the discussion on.
Okay.
Yeah, and I have to just get that information and then I'll confirm it with the millage rate and our financial advisors on bond rates and all that once I get the new cost. So that won't take them long.
I know back a few months ago, we talked about, whether or not with all of what's going on in today's world, whether or not construction costs would actually go up or stay the same or go down or whatever. I can tell you in the few bids that I've been involved with or not necessarily building material parts, but the hardscapes and the streets and the utilities, we're not seeing any measurable increase as a result of this. So I don't know if it's the right thing to do to escalate or predict the escalation or not, I guess is what I'm getting at. I'm not sure who to ask on that question.
Yeah, well, I think David can provide that based on whatever he would normally use to tell us what the project cost would be.
Okay.
If you want to comment now, I can offer something.
Sure, always willing to listen, sir.
The early on phase of the virus impact to construction costs was very favorable. The numbers were coming in really good bid-wise, under budget in almost every case. There's been some stability recently, I'd say in the last 4 weeks, where it's kind of been a lot more measured. We haven't been as surprised, meaning we haven't gotten a lot lower bids. So maybe the mindset is adjusted. But escalation is still a factor, but we have to deal with the environment we're in the marketplace. Will be a little different, but has been very favorable. So escalation, when I put this together in December, probably was a bigger influence in my mind than it is right now.
Okay. Thank you, that's helpful. Okay, to move on to L10, which has been changed to a discussion item, if I have it right, as part of our agenda approval. Discussion of the resolution to accept the city office needs assessment as the minimum basis for facility needs.
Yep, similar to the others, just figured we ought to have a minimum starting basis with the important asterisks that when this was created, when we were a village, we had fewer office staff and we had less storage needs because we weren't running elections or assessments.
Yep. So are you suggesting it's light or needs to be updated, or or are we still comfortable with it? I know, Zach, I agree with what you're saying in principle, and that's why when, like in the example of the Norfolk thing, I've always tried to suggest, 10,000 square feet, which is, rounded up from what's here, which is the prediction of 7.
Yeah, this would be taken as the minimum floor. You can never have too much storage for a municipal facility, though.
Yeah, and like we had an assessor's office that could be something else, so I mean, some of this stuff was done obviously when we had a different configuration. So, but yeah, I mean, I don't think it's super.
I thought Marie would get 2 offices.
Yeah, she can move from one to the other, change of scenery.
You have to say, is the assessor in? And then she gets up and goes over there.
I'd go for that.
Sounds like fun.
She needs a place to put more artwork and all that.
Yeah, more medals.
Yeah.
If we could freeze it for her, she'd skate from one to the other.
There you go, Paul. There you go. Okay. Is there any more discussion needed on this then, or where are we in that thought process?
I just say I'd like to have it on the next agenda as unfinished business.
Okay. All right. So that brings us down. I'm not missing any hands or anybody waving at me upstairs they're up on the top of the screen. So that brings us down to new business item L11, consideration of the resolution to designate 8140 Main as the location for City Hall.
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Okay, motion by Michelle's,
I'll second.
second by Knight. Okay, discussion. Mr. Smith?
Yes, given some of the discussion that we had in the work session this evening to talk about city office locations, I think this motion is premature.
Okay, Mr. Bell?
Again, just for the record, I think it's also premature, and I'm not sure I favor that location. So 2 counts. I think the decision doesn't need to be made now, and I don't think it's the best move right now.
Okay. I actually prefer the Norfolk or 3045 Broad area. I guess I should call it.
Zach has his hand up.
Oh, he does? Where is that on video?
Video.
I gotta get a bigger screen. All right, Zach, go ahead, sir.
My question for fellow council members who feel this is immature, what would be necessary to make it mature?
Premature.
No, premature.
I'd like to hear what the voters say in November. That's what I need, Zach.
Yeah, well, currently we don't have anything in November, so.
Well, we're
Michelle,
moving in that direction.
Michelle, you have your hand up? But she's on mute, Justin. Thank you.
He's got it. There's just a little delay between. Okay. Staff's just going to need some, if this should actually happen to go through, staff will need some clarification based on the direction that was given during the work session. Would we no longer need to provide you with the information you requested? Or would you still want us to go forward with getting that information?
I think it would be even more important to get that information if they pass this.
I agree.
I think we would probably want it either way.
Yeah, I think that that information that we talked about earlier with respect to the environmental conditions or.
No, I understand that. I'm sorry, I should have been more, should have clarified. There were also questions regarding the brownfield for 3045 Broad, and some of the questions that Mr. Cousins had. Would we still need to be pursuing that the same?
I
I
think
would
so.
let the vote occur and then we can worry about it.
Okay, thank you.
Paul, is your hand up?
Yes, it is. Well,
Okay.
I guess I would like to ask those members of the council that are not sure about this and have decided that they may think about another site. What do they feel this site should be used for then? A police station that's gigantic?
Well, Paul, I think a police station, yeah, that has some size is okay, but I think, you mentioned restrooms. Okay, for one, I'm sure we need to store vehicles, but we could potentially do that there. Maybe our leaf machine comes home and some of the things we use more downtown get stored there. I don't know. Maybe it becomes a public space of some type. I don't know. I don't know that we need to answer all of those questions just because we might be in favor of another site for that. That can play out at that time.
I don't disagree with that, but I would remind you that we have stored things in the past there. The doors were there, and I remind you that when those things were stored, there was not parking in the spaces now that we have for the park. They needed to have space to get in and out and turn around. So if we're going back to that process, we have, in my opinion, taken a step back from what should be used there. I remind us we also used to store our records there. I also reminded that there were times that there were a certain amount of material spilling on top of those records. And so I think that we ought to think about what we really want to use that for. I don't disagree about the bathrooms. We put the elevator there if we want to do that. There's a lot of different things we could use it for. But I would like to know what people are thinking about that as I'm ready to make a decision on this one here. That's all I'm asking, is that if you don't want this one, you vote no on it. What do you think should be there and how should it be used?
Yeah, I was trying to give you my answer, Paul, at least off.
Yeah,
the top of my
I got
head,
your answer, Sean. I appreciate it.
Yeah, okay. I do.
The silence is deafening from the others, so.
Okay.
I'll just say, I didn't see that question on my agenda, so I haven't prepared any thoughts on it. I'll give it some thought and I'll let you know.
Thanks, appreciate it, Scott. Thank you.
Zach's hand's up again.
Okay, Zach, I got to get you to use the raise hand feature, buddy.
Yeah, my phone doesn't like that so much.
Oh, okay, sorry. Let me find you. Let me find you on your, I got to get you centered differently. All right, go ahead, Zach, sorry.
Well, first for staff, don't worry about us making a decision on this that will press any stuff. I'm sure we're months and months away from any sort of decision. But this, if you read in the back of it, it was actually crafted to say that all information we've got now, this is the preferred spot. Because although 3045 might be exciting, that only works as a city hall if they're able to make the project go, which there's a lot of potential that can cause that not to. And it only works as a city hall if we have the parking lot, which requires purchasing 2 additional properties. So it also says, once it's safe for us to gather again, that we're going to have a design charrette, similar to 3045 went through and said, hey, community, what do you want to see here? And if we get really good answers that are much better than the city hall or that include part of the city hall, that we reconsider it. So it's saying, based on the information we got, this is the best spot, but we know once we're able to get together and do these more creative meetings, we might get better information.
Michelle, more to add?
I happen to agree with Zach on one thing, and that is a charrette process. It's just the order that I wouldn't agree. If we really want to know how people feel about the 8140 building and how it should be used, perhaps we should be doing the charrette first and then take the appropriate action.
Okay, thank you.
Move to postpone this to next meeting as unfinished business.
Okay, motion by Michelle's to postpone. Is there a second to postpone?
Support.
Okay, second by Cousins.
Who was that, Sean? That,
Paul Cousins, I believe, seconded.
okay, thank you.
Carol, thank you. Okay, to postpone. Okay, is there any discussion on the postponement? Okay, seeing none, please call the vote to postpone.
Bell,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Knight,
No.
Cousins,
No.
Smith,
No.
Fisher,
Yes.
Keo.
No, let's see what people say here. I don't want to postpone it. So the original question is still on the table. Motion by Michelle, second by Knight to designate 8140 as the location for City Hall.
So we're gonna wait until we have a vaccine to have a charrette to figure out where we're gonna have City Hall.
Well, Zach, I don't know. I don't think we should have it at 8140. So I'm happy to state that in a vote, in a motion.
Well, we got a motion.
But I mean, we've got a motion on the table right now, and I mean, things can always change depending on how the vote goes. But Ms. Jones, please call the vote.
Can you
Okay.
repeat the motion, please?
The motion is to designate 8140 as the location for City Hall.
It's
Thank
the
you.
resolution on page 316.
Yeah, thanks, Courtney.
Fisher,
No.
Smith,
No. No.
Cousins,
Yes.
Knight,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Bell,
No.
Keo.
No. Okay, motion fails 4-3. Okay, new business item L12 is discussion this was asked, I think, by Mr. Smith, right?
Yes.
Have that written down right? Okay, good. So discussion, this is discussion of drafting a resolution for submitting a bond proposal for city facilities to be placed on the ballot for November 3rd, 2020.
Yeah, seeing we already just pretty much discussed it under number 9, I don't think there's anything more to discuss here. I was leaving it open to not be exclusive to just the police and fire. That should include the city offices too.
Okay.
I've stated this before, I'll state it again, I will not support any bond proposal for November that includes all three of them because we've already voted as a body that we didn't want to do that.
Okay, thanks for reminding us of that, Zach.
I agree with Zach. I think it'd be illegal and rule illegal if we tried it.
Okay. I don't know that it's illegal, but I understand what you guys made that point last meeting, I think, if I remember right. So thank you.
Contrary to the spirit of parliamentary procedure.
Right.
Okay. Okay, then new business item L13.
Hand up,
I'm sorry, who it is?
Jim.
Oh, sorry, Jim, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on that. The action we took on the previous ballot resolution, one was to move it from May to August election. And then the other is just to remove it from the August election. We didn't make a choice about putting it anywhere yet. So, you know, there's nothing to prohibit us from taking that up again.
Except for a lack of votes.
But it still doesn't mean we can't bring it back up.
Do you imagine having two, or now we're just gonna do it for fire and police and city offices goes by the wayside? Is that?
My feeling was to plan to have, you know, city
three.
offices and fire, and sheriff depends on what decision we make about the location for the sheriff. You know, if, you know, we included it in there that in the previous wording was that possibly would include the sheriff's substation.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't any commitment at that time. So right now, that's where I'm at. I would have all three on there, again, with the possibility of the sheriff's substation.
And if I may, concerning your question, Manager Nichols, when we had earlier discussions with the Norfolk folks, and I raised the question about the difficulty of them having to time a really complex project with the MEDC money and Brownfield and us, and having to time that with the ballot question, Mayor Keogh said that for the City Hall facility, we had enough room in our cap space to just raise the millage to do that. So I'm comfortable carrying that approach forward. If we have the ability to do it under our cap space, it gives us more flexibility to do it as we're able to.
Thank you. Which also means that it could be a standalone item if we don't figure out what to do at the fire station. Because we could still take action on city offices even if the voters didn't pass the fire station proposal. Only because it's a much more manageable amount of money to do city offices at the Norfolk site. All right, so where are we? Are we done with our discussion of L12 then?
Yes.
Okay, I think so too. I'm not seeing any hands. Let me find everybody. Okay. Gotcha. Zach, what is that a picture of that I'm looking at? Because I've not seen one thing move on that. How do you guys know when he's raising his hand?
His hand appears there.
All right, I've not seen that one time. Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay, L13 is consideration of review and approval of distribution of RFQ for construction management firms to be part of the fire station project. Mr. Smith, I see your blue hand.
Yes, I'd like to make the motion for the approval of the distribution of the RFQ for construction management firms to be part of the fire station project.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, seeing none. We don't have
Move
an
to
item.
postpone this to the next meeting. Under unfinished business.
Okay, move to postpone by Michelle's,
I concur with that.
second by Smith. Any discussion needed to postpone? Okay, Ms. Jones, please call the vote to postpone.
Smith,
Yes.
Bell,
No.
Cousins,
Yes.
Fisher,
No.
Knight,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Keo.
Yeah, I'll postpone it. Yep, yes, let's postpone. So we're moving it to the next agenda, 5-2
Yes,
is what I got, Carol.
that's right.
This is a great exercise in keeping track of votes.
Well, we hired Miss Jones to do the job.
Yeah, no, well, somebody's got to check it, and we got to, so I'm
I
trying.
can count to 7.
All right, so moving on to new business item L14. I'm going to turn this over to Courtney. It's roughly, we have to make a motion to choose a new paper to advertise in, right, Courtney?
Yeah, so we found out today that the Sun-Times last print edition will be this Wednesday. So we can't use that as our paper of record anymore, unfortunately. So really the only options I'm aware of are MLive, the former Ann Arbor News, and the Washtenaw Legal News, I think is the name of it, which I only know about because I know SIO posts their notices there, but I've never physically seen a copy of that. So I think we did request quotes from both companies, but we didn't receive them back, and we have to have a paper of record because we have election notices and we have things. So for right now, I'm just going to recommend that we use MLive. We know that we can do it. They publish twice a week. We can let people know there's a way to view them online if people don't subscribe to the paper. So that would be the recommendation, just so that we have an official paper.
Can I get a motion by council, please?
So moved.
Moved by Michelle's, thank you.
Second.
Second, Cousins.
Second by Cousins, okay, thank you both for that. Any discussion?
Courtney, even though they don't publish it, does the online publication or presentation count? Or does
No.
it have to be physical?
Yeah, it has to be in some way physical, from what I understand, as far as for the state. I think they're going to have to rethink that because it's hard to find places to publish. I know they were having issues with that up north, but for now, it needs to be something that's a physical publication.
Thank you.
So Courtney, does everybody get MLive?
No, but back when it was the Dexter Leader, you had to subscribe. I mean, we just got lucky with the Sun-Times because they mailed it to everybody, but it just has to be in general circulation in the city.
So should we start our own newspaper?
Yeah. Well, we
Yeah,
do.
sure.
It's called the email update, the Facebook page, and the website.
Well, yeah, why can't we call that a newspaper and just print it and put it outside on top of our new little box?
Yeah, it doesn't work that way, unfortunately. I mean, when we wrote the charter, we wrote in certain things that we only have to publish, electronically, but there's still things in state law that we have to publish in the paper, public hearing notices, election notices, etc. So.
Right, okay.
But yeah, I mean, it was very rare. I mean, it was probably very few communities that had something where it actually went to every house. I mean, back, like I said, in the Dexter Leader days, you had to have a subscription for the Dexter Leader, and that was our paper of record. That's the normal way. I mean, it was a real benefit that it went to everybody, but I guess I'm not surprised. That seems very expensive for them to be sending it to everybody for free.
Yeah.
it will increase the cost, I'm sure. I mean, we don't have them back yet, but I imagine that advertising in MLive is, I know just putting like a classified ad for a job is expensive, so it will likely have an impact on cost.
Gotcha. Donna, your hand looks up, please.
Yeah, when I was clerking, I had to post all over town. Can we meet any requirements by doing that? I have two postings in precinct 1, 2 postings in precinct 2, 1 at the office, that kind of thing.
Right, they still, I believe most of it still does have to go into the paper.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I did do both. Okay. Been a long time.
Thanks, Donna.
Yep.
Okay, so we have a motion by Michelle, second by Cousins. Is there any other questions relative to taking this action? Obviously, we need to do it. Thanks for being on top of it, Courtney and Justin.
Yeah, I'm glad they sent it today. Otherwise,
Special meeting tomorrow.
Right.
yeah.
They're easy to do by Zoom.
Yeah, we would have just used MLive, I think, because that's really the most logical. Like I said, has anyone ever seen Washington Legal News?
No.
Never
I
saw it in
have,
my
but I
life.
haven't heard.
I just know, like I said, I only know it from SIO.
Okay. All right, Ms. Jones, if you would call the vote, please.
Bell,
Yes.
Cousins,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Knight,
Yes.
Keo.
Yes. Thank you. I'd like to congratulate the council. That's a record for new business items in one meeting. I think that's the most I've ever seen. So now we'll do council comments, and I'll take it from the top of the screen, starting with Jim Smith on my list here, please.
Well, when we were talking about the newspaper there, I was thinking back to in the history of out like in the New England area where you had the town crier
Right.
go out and.
I thought that was Paul.
Well,
hear ye, hear ye.
Yeah.
We have one of those.
Thank you.
We're good.
Gotcha. Ms. Knight.
I have nothing, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Michelle's?
Just a request for staff, by the end of this week, could you give us a list of all the things that had been carried over? Just a quick summary of the vote so that you don't get duplicates submitted for next week or for the next meeting.
Okay. I can just do a draft agenda.
Okie doke. Today I was thinking back when Village Council decided to go forward with cityhood, Mr. Smith was on there and decided he wanted to campaign against it, so he stepped off council in order to do that. When Mr. Tell was on city council and it looked like we were going to build a city hall or a fire station where he didn't want it, he said he was willing to step off council so he could campaign against it. I just wanted to remind everybody that once a decision has been made, we have to, as a body, support that. We may not like it. If you absolutely cannot stomach it, there's always the remedy of stepping off council and campaigning for it. And that's all that I got.
Okay. Thank you for that. Ms. Fisher?
No, thank you.
Mr. Cousins?
Well, just because you know I'm ornery and old, I would like to remind us that sometimes the decisions we make come back to haunt us. I'm sure that Ms. Nichols and the staff would have appreciated about twice as much space as they had. 12 years ago, this council made a decision to buy the property down on 5th Street that was part of the Methodist Church, or the library, excuse me, the library, Methodist Church, and then the library at that time. The square footage, I just went back and checked it again today, was 3,990 square feet. It was sold for $285,000, and we had an estimate of $100,000 above that. So for approximately $400,000, we could have had a city hall for the last 10 years or 11 years at twice the space we have now. Twice the space. We could have had no discussion with the seniors about where we're going to meet or anybody else. We voted to do that, and then we changed our mind by a 4-3 vote instead of a 5-2 vote to do it. Remind yourselves each time that you walk into that city office that we have up there today, that we could have had twice as much space by making the right decision 11 years ago. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Mr. Bell.
Good, nothing.
Okay, how about our student members? Alex, anything to comment on?
I would just like to say that I'm very grateful for the opportunity to serve as a student representative to the City Council this year. And I look forward to the discussions that we have. And thank you.
You're very welcome. Is Miss Malik around? I think she's unmuted. Isabel? Okay, I'm gonna assume no comment there. So we're down to non-arranged participation. Is there anyone that would like to speak this evening under non-arranged? Michelle?
Yes, there's one thing that I forgot to mention in my update, and I figured I'd better bring it up just in case you hear from any residents. Scioto Township was supposed to have a public hearing tonight for a conditional rezoning of property just outside the city boundaries. When they did their public hearing notice, they did not send notification to the residents in the city within the 300-foot area. So we contacted the clerk regarding it and discovered that they don't generally, they haven't included the city. At least the person that I talked to said that they don't include the city. They haven't ever done that. I don't know actually how far that goes, but they are correcting that. They will hold a new public hearing with the proper notification going out. And so next month they'll have that. They also, if Mr. Heisler's Sloan Farm project comes back, they'll have to do a public hearing for that one as well. Because that's the only other one that I would know of that they've done recently.
Okay, thanks, Michelle.
I have a question. Is that property, you're talking about the Heisler property?
That one, no, the one that was for tonight is property that's on Dexter Ann Arbor Road, just outside the city.
Just past Bushes.
Yep.
On the Bushes side of the road.
That's different than the one that's there, back there in the back?
What is that, Forshee Lane or something?
No, it's, hang on just a second.
Other side of the road.
Oh, north side?
Right,
Yeah.
it's the north side of the road.
They call it Aaron Farms.
Right.
It's 6620 Dexter Ann Arbor.
All right, thank you. For
It's
us that
11
are
acre. It's like
interested, please always identify the property, Michelle.
Excuse me? I'm sorry, Paul.
Please always identify the property. Outside the city doesn't identify the property. Give me an
Yep.
address.
Yeah, it's like 12 acres of land.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, maybe when you get it defined, you can show us a map or whatever as that goes forward, just so we're all aware.
Yep.
Okay. Thanks for that. Are there any other non-arranged participation hands?
I don't see any, but would you like me to unmute everyone at this point?
Yes, please.
All right, I've asked everyone who wishes to participate to unmute.
Okay, I'm not seeing any, so I thank you all for a good meeting. Pretty crisp. I think we got through stuff. I'm going to seek a motion for adjournment under item O, please.
So moved.
So moved by Smith,
Second.
second by Fisher. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. I'd like to wish everyone a good evening. And we're off to a good start to our new fiscal year. So thank you to staff, thank you to council, thank you to all that participated. Everybody have a good
Thank you.
night.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night. Stay safe.
Good night, everybody.
Good
Stay
night.
Good night.
safe.
Night.